Hey guys, let's rock it one more time in space. The Deluxe Mega Winger and Silver Titanus are here to round out the Season 6 toy line, though unfortunately I only have 2 copies of one and 0 of the other, but don't worry, we'll make it work. So on screen in the series, the spacecraft theme continued, and here they all are together. They look fantastic as a year group, and so distinct from everything we'd ever had before. Since we entered the field of having multiple Megazords per season in Season 3, it's sometimes been hard to justify all of them operating as a group. It's usually more of a choice for the Rangers between which Megazord should we use today, especially in Zeo and Turbo. But In Space's 4 releases actually only give us 8 individual Zords, 9 if you count the Astro Shuttle, and this succinct style really makes each one seem necessary. So with the main 5 Rangers getting all the goods so far, the line ends with a heavy emphasis on the Silver Ranger evening things out. First with his personal Zord, and then kind of crowbarring him into a Toyline exclusive carrier Zord. Get it? Because he's Silver Ranger, and the Gold Ranger had 2 Zords of his own, one of which was a Pyramid Ultrazord. So the previous few seasons had given us more of an intermediate tier 6 Ranger Zord, as well as a gigantic carrier Zord. In Space, the season definitely ended this approach, but Bandai America weren't quite ready to let go for the toy line. Like a smashed glass in case of emergency box, and much like their last call out to it during Season 3, they needed a friend for another bailout, only this time it would need a bit of a makeover to inconspicuously fit in with the spacecraft theme, with questionable results. Let's talk the toy history. So Mega Winger is the Power Rangers 1998 release of the Super Sentai 1997 Megaranger DX Mega Winger. On the show, the Zord arrived with 2 appearances in episode 30. 13 episodes after the first appearance of Mega Voyager, Mega Winger was a gift from the Rebels of KO 35. It didn't appear very much, actually only in 7 episodes, and received quite a lot of battle damage during the finale Countdown to Destruction. Thanks to those of you that have helped me remember something I'd forgotten in my Mega Voyager review, that the more obvious reason they shared the same name as their Japanese counterparts was that it was on plain display in the cockpit of both Zords. Thanks Dylan Boland, you reminded me first during the premiere, but the Cyberman 1966 and Sega Sky, you were in the comments pretty pronto too. Now we did have this one back in the day, or rather my brother did. This was the toy he got when I got Astro Megazord, a final island Megazord pickup, and for my bro, his checkout point for Power Rangers Zords. It included an 8-inch Silver Ranger action figure, kind of tying it full circle back to his first one, which was the Dragon Zord that came with the Green Ranger 8-inch figure. In a season that really served to wrap up Power Rangers, that was nice connective tissue between this season and the very start of the show. Like the 1995 movie figures, they've used the chromed design, which has actually held up over the years, and while not accurate to the show, is a nice striking design. You actually got 2 fully painted versions of his weapon, the Super Silverizer, yeah, okay, in its blade and blaster mode, which could sort of be slotted into the holster.
However, I haven't been able to find metallic 8-inch figures for the rest of the In Space team, and also I've noticed that America got a talking version of the figure, whereas here in Europe, the talking part got removed. Genuinely no battery compartment or button on ours. Pretty weird, kind of disappointing.
The Mega Winger, as its name suggests, has a big emphasis on its wings. Why that would be important in outer space, I don't know, but they did make the most of it in its Earth-centric footage. The toy history of Silver Titanus. Oh boy, where to begin? So there's been this long-standing rumour in the Power Rangers fandom that Silver Titanus was originally meant to feature on the show in an unmade 3rd part of the 2-part series finale Countdown to Destruction. Why you would introduce a new Zord in the final episode, I don't know. That doesn't make sense to me. Personally, I don't believe it, though genuinely if it is true, they could have done it with the toys, just like they did in Season 3 with the Ninja and Shogun Ultrazords. So it exists. It definitely exists as a Toyline exclusive, released in the US alongside the Mega Voyager and Mega Winger, but definitely not in the UK. Can't imagine why. I didn't find out about it until seeing it online years later. Naturally, it's based on a Frankenstein version of the original Beast Knight, God King, Brachion from Zyuranger. As well we know, turned into Titanus for Power Rangers Season 1, and as the return of Titanus in Season 3. This time though, they actually tried to change it. They must have realised that there were those of us like me that didn't actually need Return of Titanus. For that release, they didn't really change anything, they didn't make it necessary to buy. Here they at least tried to give us something slightly different, slightly being the operative word. So what about the designs? Personally, I don't think Mega Winger is one that has aged particularly well. It's absolutely fine, but that's kind of all it is. So we've been going through some teething trouble with 6 Ranger Zords. In Zeo, the 6 Ranger Zord was technically Pyramidus, the Ultrazord, but he also got a cheaper Zord in Warrior Wheel. In Turbo it was kind of a similar story, whether you count Blue Centurion or Phantom Ranger as the 6 Ranger. I guess they kind of both were. They both got Zords somewhat comparable to the Zeo Gold Ranger ones. Blue Centurion got his transforming Robo Racer with 2 distinct modes, and Artillatron for the Phantom Ranger was a Carrier Zord, don't call it an Ultrazord, but that also had 2-ish modes. But Warrior Wheel and Robo Racer, try saying those two 3 times fast, were both quite small in stature. They don't scale very well against a Megazord. Both are not much taller than a regular equivalent humanoid Zord. Mega Winger comparatively kind of gives us a new way of doing 6 Ranger, or I guess auxiliary Zords as a whole. In a way it kind of harkens back to the original Dragon Zord, a simple ally with a gimmick, but instead of electronics, this one has the recent favourite of spring-loaded. Great. Part of me thinks I would have liked it if they could have made it more silver to match the Ranger it's actually for, but it's very white, which often is the colour stand-in for the Pink Ranger. And the only Space Team colour not present on this is blue, but I suppose you could say we got enough of that in the Astro Megazord. I guess looking at it beside the other Megazords of the season, it makes sense as white, as Delta already had grey covered. Armed with its winged blaster, which I like, that can be held in 2 different ways, as a singular weapon or as an armbar thing, which actually conceals both the fists of the Zord. On to the other one then. So during the first few years of the show, there was no disputing the idea of an Ultrazord to unify all of, or most of the Zords into a gargantuan final combination. Then Artillatron rolled along, and suddenly the idea of what one was in dispute. In Space, the series takes the lead mostly from Turbo, in that there is no Ultrazord. The toyline though takes a leaf mostly from Season 3 by literally resurrecting Titanus.
According to Tokunation, where most of the photos I've used are taken from, Silver Titanus was actually designed in Japan by Plex, the design company behind the majority of the Super Sentai and later Power Rangers designs. That's crazy. I had always blamed Bandai America. I was wrong.
More like how Murphy gets turned into Robocop, they give him a bit of a brutal rework. The basics are still there, you can still technically make his tail out of the cannons. But they have done just enough to make this toy into something new. This thing is horrible. Let's get that out of the way. I've been watching people's reviews on YouTube, and nothing that I've seen has convinced me that this thing is anything other than a waste. I remember feeling strongly disgusted when I first found it online. It was so blatant that they'd done so little to change the original form from the Brachiosaurus Zord. But as years have progressed, I have mellowed on the idea of it, and while I'm not quite at the excessive eBay cost that the rate for pickup goes these days, I do keep an eye out for a more affordable one day. They removed a lot of what you remember about Titanus, the claws and chest plate, which admittedly were already redundant by the time of the Season 3 Ultrazord, but now also Titanus's dinosaur head replaced with a rocket launcher. In terms of artillery firepower, this thing kind of feels a little overkill. What are the differences to the originals? For the Mega Winger, again, none. Though I'm curious if they have the same leg clip break issue that seems to affect ours. We'll get on to that next. The Wing Blaster needs more detail, some silver paint maybe, but that was equally true in Japan, and it's thankfully nothing a little paint can't fix. For Silver Titanus, as there was definitely no equivalent in Japan. I think you have to compare it to Bandai America's previous release of the original. It's kind of interesting what they did and didn't change. For the most part, the mold is still intact, but with a few crucial differences. One, of course, is the Brachiosaurus head and neck, and the rolling out Ultrazord compartment is permanently out now to accommodate a new shuttle piece. Yeah, because that's all it takes to turn a Brachiosaurus into a spacecraft. What are you left with then? Well, his rounded Brachiosaurus body, his back feet are still the same. The front wheels are also the same, sans the claws that you would normally clip on. In fact, the clips themselves are still there, but you've got nothing to attach. There's also a spoiler bar running across the back. They gave it a colour rework from black to white, but kept the lines gold. Surely silver would have been a better fit for its namesake, but silver is definitely there for all of his 4 wheel covers, still bizarrely part of the mould. They thankfully spent some time changing the decal patterns, but they also removed some stickers, and no, fortunately this was not the return of lightning bolt stickers. It's just a bit of a gross shape overall, and most controversially, they removed the electronics. But of course, not the battery compartment itself, so much like the Season 3 Falcon Zord, that blank space, still there. It even still had the name of the Japanese toy, the DX Zoo Ranger name for God King Brachion, put on because that was part of the mould. They updated the production year to 1998, as this was just on the battery compartment, so a relatively easy piece to remold, even though it leads to nothing.
Also, here's a look at a poor man's in-space Titanus you can probably do yourself. As you can see, it's pretty easy to put together. Just make sure you've got some blue tack on hand.
What's bad about them then? So on the show, the Mega Winger transformation sequence was always shown ultra fast, and so they try replicate this on the toy using spring-loaded parts. Unfortunately though, you will probably spend just as much time, if not longer, trying to prise out the forearms and hands as you will pressing the 3 buttons. Strange that it's the exact same piece that broke on both of these, our original and the eBay replacement. The rather rubbish, shallow hook solution is just so impractical for this Zord. And to remove the dissatisfaction we had when younger that the leg wouldn't stay forward in Zord mode, solve it with blue tack. Wear, age and time itself are definitely the main culprits this time. A slight silver lining, ironically this is our final season of Zords to suffer from the UV yellowization. It was the last year that we would display in a window. Never do that. The sun is not Zord's friends. Yeah, we eventually wised up and realised what we were doing to our old Zords. There are meant to be 2 cone-shaped missiles on the wing backpack, which naturally when you're a kid go missing. Very few people seem to have theirs when reselling Mega Winger, and you can actually buy 3D printed replacements online from Rangers Remorphed. Honestly, I wish they'd just been moulded onto the wings, but whatever, we'll just pretend the little tabs that are left are the blasters. Also, on our rebuy replacement, the wings don't clip on anymore, whereas on our original they still have a very solid, snug fit. It isn't obvious to me what's actually gone wrong here. To me they still look the same. It's just one clips on well and the other just slides on and off. If anyone knows a fix for this, please let me know. The button that releases the Mega Winger Zord head being the buckle symbol, it's a shame because you press it by accident. It's a very shallow, more sensitive button than the other 2, and being on the base of the Zord, it comes into contact with the ground. So usually when releasing the arms, the head springs up as well. I feel like the Mega Winger's transformation is a bit misleading. It feels like you should be able to pose it however you want, but you just can't. It's too floppy and loose. And it's the only Zord of the in-space toy line with a propensity to fall backwards. Look at the feet of Astro Delta and Mega Voyager. They're all pretty sturdy and stable, whereas Mega Winger's feet are not, and the added weight of the wings on its back makes it want to capsize all the time. I feel like that's another reason why they gave us such a nice weapon for him in the Wing Blaster. It's kind of there to stabilize him, kind of balance the weight out forwards. On a hard surface floor you should be alright, but this thing was never really capable of standing up on its own on carpet. Unless of course you balanced out the weight or just removed those accessories completely. Oh, here's a name that didn't carry over from Japan, Mega Wing Voyager. In America it was called the Winged Mega Voyager. And while the combination isn't as extensive as you want after Astro and Delta configured a brand new unique mode, Mega Voyager and Winger's combo essentially is just sharing parts again, akin to the Turbo Rescue Megazord borrowing Artillotron's artillery power. Even the finisher weapon is still the same. And what's bad about Silver Titanus? Do I even need to go there? Obviously I'd be able to answer this a lot better if I had my own, but I mean, just look at it. I think the removal of electronics really hurt this thing. Obviously it was just done to make the thing cheaper to produce, but to me seems really unnecessary. That's kind of Titanus's key selling point. What's good about them though? Well, I particularly liked the uniformity on the show that Mega Winger just felt like an extension of the Mega Vs. It has its own Zord hanger and it has Mega W inscribed on it instead of a Mega V number. I'd say other than the Falcon Zord among the Ninja Zords, we'd not really had integration of the 6 Ranger Zord like that before. And the Mega V Zords being quite large, it actually scales quite well alongside them all. If you remember my criticism last time that they voted out the wheels on the Mega Voyager, they're back for the Winger, though kind of ingeniously it looks like there's 8 of them, but actually only the top and bottom ones are real wheels, the middle ones are just solid plastic. The reason I'm calling this something good is that they didn't have to do that, they could have made them all fake. It's good that they gave it the rolling action. In the Shuttle Zord mode, I like that they gave us a place as well to stow the Wing Blaster. Again, it fits with the Mega Voyager ethos that its weapons are just a part of it and don't materialise from nowhere like, say, the Astro Megazord Saber. There's some nice chrome panels on the shins, and the inclusion of it on the base of the feet is something that just wouldn't happen today, but it makes sense in its Zord mode. It shows the kind of thrust of the Zord propelling it through space. The yellow eye visor on the helmet kind of looks like a V, which would be a nice touch if it wasn't the wrong release for it. Obviously here it should be a W, which I can't even imagine how that would look as an eye visor. Once again, it has an MV symbol on its chest, much like the Mega Voyager. I don't know if the orange V is meant to resemble 2 halves of a W. Might be a bit of a reach there, but let's go with it. While I was just a bit harsh on the winged Mega Voyager combo lacking a bit, I do like that it felt very completist. Kind of full circle-y that the Rangers sort of technically had a 6 Ranger Zord combination again for the first time since the Ninja Mega Falcon Zord in season 3 and of course the movie, and it definitely bears a likeness to it with the same colour scheme and white wings. It would have been better if they were a bit bigger like they are in the show. But I remember when first seeing Winged Mega Voyager on the show, it reminded me so much of Ninja Mega Falcon Zord. What about you guys? Did you think the same? And maybe Bandai America agreed that the combinations just didn't go far enough either. As a kid I always preferred having an Ultrazord than not, so probably would have jumped on the growth Silver Titanus had I have seen it in the UK. Bandai America were definitely dragging their heels about not having one as well. They knew they could get people to buy a new one each year, so why not try something like this? If you can ignore what a design nightmare it is, I think it's a nice idea, and actually helps to showcase one of the more interesting Megazords from the series. The box advised combining him with Mega Voyager or Mega Winger, but you could actually put Astro Delta Megazord inside with Mega V2 and V3's artillery, which would have been an even more encompassing version of an in-space Ultrazord. As Season 3 showed us, Titanus is adaptable. You can change the feature Megazord to whatever you want. So there doesn't have to be just a singular combination. I guess they didn't feature Astro Delta on the box because it would have been the second half of the year Zords that they were trying to push instead. Also, for the unsure parent or unsuspecting retail worker, the Astro Delta Megazord wouldn't look like something that they had out on the shelf. They would have needed to have used more box space to explain that it's actually 2 separate releases. So while I wouldn't say that Silver Titanus or Mega Winger are the best criteria to judge Power Rangers in space on as a season, well, it's just the one really, isn't it? It's easily the most tightly plotted, most engaging season of the show, and will definitely work for most. As a kid, I couldn't even see this, but it borrows heavily from the 2 main intergalactic media known in America at the time. As well as having the obvious framing device of interplanetary adventures, I'd say it's 1 part Star Trek with its jumpsuits and ship bridge, 1 part Star Wars with its empirical war connotations and the curveball of the family connection in the supervillain. And of course 1 part Power Rangers with solid, simple iconography in the suits, vehicles and Zords. Even now, the season just holds up, and while the toys don't, in that they're all suffering from the trials of time, they definitely still look the part, and I would personally say are still the best designed space-themed Zords or mecha seen so far in Power Rangers or Sentai. Just don't include Silver Titanus in that. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed this look back at the in-space toy line. I've definitely enjoyed revisiting them again, even if you feel like you have to be really quite careful with them all. Do let me know your thoughts in the comments on the Mega Winger, the combination, and Silver Titanus. Did you have it? Did you want it? Did you just get rid of it? Do subscribe if you haven't already, and until the next time, see you later.